and all kinds of different things. But one thing that kind of drew me to it more than anything else was the green cleaning, the idea of being able to clean and sanitize and all that point, without using harsh chemicals, or at least minimizing the amount of chemicals as possible.
Welcome to Facility Maven here on Podbean, a podcast where your questions on facility and cleaning issues are answered by mavens in your field. This podcast is brought to you by FacilityMaven.com, where you can elevate your career with facility and cleaning supplies. Good morning, everyone. This is Dave Thompson. I am your host here. You did not come on here to listen to me. You came on to see if I have a guest, and I do. It is, I believe his first time on the show, but Javier and I know each other for a while now. Javier, are you on the line with us? Let's check that first.
Yes. Good morning. Good morning. I am here.
Good morning. Javier is, him and his wife, and I'm going to let you tell all about that, Javier, but the two of them run a cleaning operation called Modern Cleaning Solutions in Tampa Bay, Florida. And, I ran into Javier whenever you came to a master's class a number of years ago. So, Javier, let's kind of tell everybody who you are, what you and your wife are doing, and why are they going to listen to you today?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Dave, for having me today. It's very nice of you, and I feel honored, to speak and be able to share with everyone. Basically, to kind of get back to what you just said, my wife and I got this crazy notion that we wanted to get into the cleaning business. We both came from different backgrounds. But it's something that I liked. I was kind of very fascinated with the industry, a lot about it. I always liked the machines and watching things since I was a little kid. So we finally had a meeting of the minds, and then the only place that I could find, because I had not one idea or one clue about what to do with cleaning, let alone operate a machine. So I went online and I found this place called Gem Supply. And at that time, the offices were in a different location than where they moved to now in Tampa. And I noticed that they were giving classes and instructions. So I met this guy, or read about this guy called Dave Thompson. And he was giving classes on flooring and all kinds of different things. But one thing that kind of drew me to it more than anything else was the green cleaning, the idea of being able to clean and sanitize and all that point, without using harsh chemicals, or at least minimizing the amount of chemicals as possible. So I went to the class and had a great time and learned a lot. And then shortly after, we got on the ground running, and we're going almost 5 years strong now. And as Dave mentioned, we are based in Tampa. Now we do the Tri-County areas, which will do Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties. And, with the grace of God, we're doing very well. We've expanded and, and I've learned a lot, over the last almost 5 years now. I can't believe, my goodness, time has gone by so fast.
Well, folks, you're probably wondering, does my wife have a name? Come on, you're gonna have to introduce her. She's probably not coming on the show today, but no, she does have a name.
Yes. I'm sorry, and forgive me for not mentioning my lovely wife, but I don't know. I just got sideswiped into this whole thing here of talking about the business. So my wife's name is Jana, and she's originally from Czechoslovakia, which is the Czech Republic in Europe, and she is a very, 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 very I want to say leadership-filled lady, for lack of a better word. She's been a great inspiration to me in the business. She's probably at times more enthusiastic than I am. She's very, very good with everything, and she's also, learns a lot and is very motivated. So it's nice when you have a partner that, is kind of shares the same dream or the same idea as you. It's really a good thing. But unfortunately, I would have liked her to have join us today as well, but she did have to go meet a client this morning. Is actually an estimate that we're doing. So, I said, well, I'm going to be on the radio and you're going to go crunch numbers.
So you got her working while you're enjoying sitting on the phone.
That's right. we have to take
You
pleasures
know,
once in a while.
folks, I've known the two of these folks for now for 5 years, and I can tell you that since this is recorded and live out there, there will be a little bit of conversation this evening between the two. Um, Now, she's from the Czech Republic, so they're probably wondering. You said your backgrounds are diverse, so where are you from?
Well, I was born here in Tampa. I'm a Tampa native. Now, my heredity, my nationality is from Spain. My grandparents were both born in Spain and they went to Cuba. And my parents, they of course, my dad was born in Cuba. He came before Fidel Castro, before that revolution in the early 50s. And my mom came in the mid 60s. She was a little girl. But both my parents were raised here in Tampa, but our lineage is of Spanish origin on both sides of my family.
So now, folks, you get a Spanish person from Cuba, and then you get a Czech, and you get somebody that's passionate and somebody that crunches numbers, and you have modern cleaning for 5 years. How many employees are you up to now?
We are up to 15 employees.
And do you care to share your annual revenue with folks?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right now, our gross is $1,100,000. That is, of course, not counting. I mean, withdrawing, of course, employees, our HR, and everything else.
Oh, yeah. All the things it takes to run a business.
So we're grossing 1.1 right now, which I'm very, very happy. We've got our third truck. We just bought it last month. And we're getting ready to hire a supervisor, a roaming supervisor, because we're getting to the point already to where me and her, my wife and I should say, we're pulling our hairs out of a head. I can't really do too much. So much.
Now, hopefully that's not you pulling hers and her pulling yours.
Well, it's a little bit of both on both sides once in a while.
So, Javier, I have to ask, why did you want to be on a podcast with me today after all these years?
Well, because it's something I've been meaning to do, wanting to do, and I finally, I don't want to say I want to drummed up the courage to do it. I'm not afraid of it.
I'm not sure that's okay. That's all right if that's what it is. That's what it is.
But I just felt compelled that I like you said, Dave. I've heard you've been doing this ever since we met for many years, or at least several years already, and I like it. I like talking and sharing my views, and maybe possibly if we spoke to other people, sharing my input in what I've done in my business or what I'm trying to do in my business. Put it that way. So others, kind of, I don't want to say be inspirational necessarily, but, just say if anybody has any questions, hey, what did I do here? What did I do there? I love to help people and try to share my views.
Well, I have to kind of go here, folks, because as you said, we have a little bit of a history here. And I noticed that we had a couple of people come on a live show. If you come on live and are listening to the show and you want to talk with either Javier or myself, just put something in the chat box so that we know what you want to talk about, and we may have you come on the air and talk with us, or we just may answer in the chat. So want to make sure that you got that. I happened to be looking at your website as you were talking there, Javier, and I'm like, certificates. Hey, since I'm in the certificate business and verifying people, I had this customer the other day. He says, I need to have somebody to do floor care for me because he doesn't have any equipment for floor care. And he said, do you have anybody that's taken your class and got a certificate that I can get to do floors? And go, here's the problem. Just because they earned a certificate from the academy doesn't mean that they're actually doing what we talked, or they really know how to, or they have the equipment. I think that might be different for modern cleaning.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Dave. Getting the certification in your class, or getting the certification, especially in your class in general, the way I looked at it was that you have to, that it's not good enough to have a piece of paper on the wall, is exactly like you said. You have to put inputs into place to where you're actually practicing what you learned and what you are going to do about it, especially when you're trying to sell your product to your customers and trying to, convince your customers that from what you learned, you are going to be, or you're going to provide a better service to them than the average out there. Because, let's face it, there's a lot of people in our industry, in the cleaning business, uh, whether it's from the building services contractor side, or it's, just whatever, different areas, you know, however you want to break it down. But, the thing is, when you go and when you talk to a client and they've got three, four, five different proposals from other competing companies, the thing is, what makes you distinctive? Why should they pick you? And I think with those certifications and with the knowledge that you learn, it really gives you something to fall back on and say, well, wait a minute. The first guy who gave me an estimate didn't say that he was certified in green cleaning, as an example, or he wasn't certified in floor care, or he didn't demonstrate that he knew anything necessarily about anything. So it kind of gives you a lot of leverage and helps you, um, I guess, really make people feel at ease and feel better.
Well, then now, as you're talking about that, Javier, should certificates just be a one-time thing, or should they be updated, in your opinion?
I think they should be recertified, and I am guilty of that myself. I have, as a matter of
Well,
fact,
I did. That's not what I brought that up for. I wasn't trying to say that, but I have people that come to the academy and just like you earn a certificate and say, "Well, I don't ever have to do it again," or "I learned that stuff 10 years ago. I don't need to go through that again." Do you? How do you feel about that thought?
well, I completely disagree with somebody who would say that, because I, first of all, I don't believe that you ever stop learning.
Okay.
There's nothing that, I mean, to this day, I can't think of anyone who can stand up and say, hey, I know it all about one particular thing. If you do, well, you know, I think you might be a super genius that most of us are not. So I believe that you have to keep learning. And again, there's new techniques, there's new processes, things keep changing. And not only that, I mean, that's the primary focus on that. But the other thing is too that it's really really important to. It's almost like if you were, I guess, a plumber, an electrician, let's say for example, and you have a state licensure and a state certification. Now, obviously, that might be a little bit more crucial. But at the same time, clients, when you go out and you make your bids and you talk to people and you're trying to land work, they're going to demand that all your licenses are up to date and all that kind of thing. So it's no different than this type of certification. It's the same thing. It's just, it really is something that you should, if you do it once, you can do it on a continuous basis, and you can continuously learn. That's the main focus, I think, is learning.
So, should the certification be for the company or for the individual employees, and is it something that everybody should have, or just one person?
No, I believe that everybody should have it. I know that I know it can become difficult sometimes, maybe for companies, especially if they're smaller companies and they've got a minimal amount of employees and they want to try to get all their employees certified. I know it can be a little bit, expensive or whatnot, but in the long run, it pays off. I think that, sure, the ownership of the company, like, of course, we're speaking about, let's say, for example, myself and my wife, we should have both the certificates, but it would be ample and fantastic if every single employee had it. Sure.
Well, I know that Jana has been to a couple of classes that you haven't been able to attend, and just like you said this morning, because one of you still has to do the business. So, I commend you guys for doing that. And folks, the reason I bring this conversation up to start our talk today is that there's many people that come through the academy and earn a certificate, a piece of paper, as you said there, Javier. But you have followed the green cleaning that you mentioned as closely as possible. And I think I'd like for you to kind of talk to the audience a little bit about why why green cleaning. Why have you stuck with it when that's not popular?
Well, one thing that really opened my eyes was, of course, Dave, when I took your class, the master's class, and I learned about green cleaning and what it is, because I always thought, and especially after taking that class, your class, I should say, that people have a kind of a misdirected notion on the cleaning industry, thinking that, everything is the old fashioned way. That, of course, as an example, you had to use bleach, you had to use ammoniated products. You have to do that or else it won't kill germs and it won't work. I mean, yes, at one time in history, that was probably the only thing that you could do because that's all we had. The inventions and certain types of other products and stuff like that hadn't come around yet. But now we have that option. So the thing is that why it's a common sense thing for me. It's why would you want to clean or to try to disinfect, sanitize, for whatever word you want to try to use here. Why would you want to do that with using the conventional products and the conventional techniques when there's something out there that's better, that does the same job or even a better job in most cases? Why would you want to subject yourself and, of course, subject your employees and other important people to potential health problems? And let's face it, I mean, a lot of people just don't want to acknowledge it. And I deal with customers all the time, and I'm talking to them, and they're like, well, hey, I've been cleaning with bleach since I was a kid, and my grandmother cleaned with bleach. And I'm like, well, that's good. More power to her. But, the reality is that bleach is not good for you. It's highly toxic. It's very poisonous. Sure, it's effective. It works. It kills germs. But there's just so many other things out there. And if I can offer you a better idea or a better thing that will do the same job and won't make you sick or won't give you the potential of possibly being sick, why would you not want to indulge in that? That's what green cleaning to me makes, to answer your question originally, that's what makes it fascinating to me, is that it's the ability to be able to achieve the same goal without, you know, without having to put anyone's health or anything else at risk.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting here, folks, as Javier's talking, I'm realizing something. You've got a $1.1 million company that is green cleaning. When people say you can't do that,
Yep, that's absolutely
yeah,
right.
and so, folks, I think this is exactly one of the things I always talk about in class is look at what everybody else is doing and don't do it. And I think Javier and Jana have exemplified that statement quite a bit, at least in this area. And of all the students in the 6 years that I've been doing this here in Florida, you're the only one that has actually stayed true to the point that you have, which says it is possible if you choose. I would imagine it hasn't been easy though.
Absolutely not. It's been a very difficult ride, and it continues to be a very difficult ride, because the main problem is convincing people in the world at large, if you will, that there is another way and a better way. Because we run into that brick wall all the time. I spoke
Okay.
to a gentleman last week. We went to go do a quote for his preschool, and of course he's got little children there, toddlers, and all that.
Hmm.
And that he was telling me the teachers were cleaning his building currently. So obviously he wants to get that off his teachers, and he wants a professional company to come in and work.
Right.
So we were talking, and I asked him. I said, "So what do you uh, what are you doing right now, or what are your teachers cleaning with?" The same thing. Well, they use Lysol and they use bleach and all that stuff. And I said, "Well, wait a minute. You know, those things. These are children. These are young kids that you're dealing with here. They're breathing all those things. They're God knows that they're touching it. Green cleaning is very, very important. It's very important that you want to start things off right. So that's one particular example. I mean, I've run into that all the time, but it's convincing that man that we can do it, and it's one by one. It's him today. There's another one tomorrow, whatever. Because the industry as a whole, the cleaning business as a whole, other people, other competitors in our market, competitors of mine, whatever. If everybody can institute that, because it's really interesting. If you really look in the Tampa Bay area, you really do a little research. There are very few green cleaning companies as ourselves. There is probably, I believe, last I counted or seen, there was other 4 or 5 other companies in the entire Tampa Bay area. We're talking thousands and thousands of people here, folks, that institute anything like that or even mention that, because cleaning companies, they're dime a dozen. I mean, you can go, they're
Well,
everywhere.
and to your point, though, Javier, even though that they may mention it, do they actually live it like what you're talking about this morning?
Absolutely, and I think that that is questionable in certain aspects. I think that it's become popular now here and worldwide. I think, and people want to see that change, but it's slow. It's progress in motion, but it's slow, and we don't know. I mean, some I would imagine do, but I don't know. Some people get scared off with it too, because one thing I ran into and I've run into is that, oh my god, it's got to be green. It's better for you, but my goodness, it's got to be expensive. Oh yeah, anything like that that's healthy for you. It's like when you go to the health food store and you see these, special peanuts or something or almonds or something, and they're imported, blah blah blah, and they're organic and they're all natural, and a half an ounce costs you $10 or something like that, and people are scared. They're like, oh my god, I can't afford that; just too expensive. Well, again, it's not that it's any more expensive. It's a technique, it's a routine, and then it's just the purpose of being able to convince people to get out of the dark ages is kind of what I want to say.
Well, folks, I don't want to get too deep into that subject this morning on your first visit here to the podcast. We might get into it deeper if you come back again. But I think this is a point that I kind of wanted to make here, folks, is that green cleaning, as Javier and Jana are doing this at Modern Cleaning Solutions, is about health. It's not about a certain product. I think you've heard him say that several times already. The health of the people that are in that environment. I love the example you just gave this morning, of the young kids, because those are the lives that we can influence the most. Some of us, my age, we're already negatively affected by what we've used, and as you said, just because we used it in the past doesn't mean we should use it today.
Mhm.
Does it go further than just the chemical? Is it more the practice, or what have you found?
I've found, Dave, that it's a mixture of both, but I think it's the practice. The chemical is very important. Of course, it's especially, you do have to have something to disinfect and of course do bacteria, viruses, all of the above. But it's the practice. It's really teaching people on what the correct practice is, and on top of that, the most important thing is also teaching your employees as a company, as a business owner, because that's all well and good what your employees see you do and what you train them when they're doing it. But behind the scenes, when you're not there, it's making sure that they're doing that same thing. And the way we've found, my wife and I have found, that we have to continuously always retrain them. We always have it just
You,
the whole way.
as you were saying that, I'm thinking, as long as we've known this, folks, people have a tendency to bring in their own stuff because they know what that's. Oh, I've always used this particular Mister Clean or Top Job or whatever it is at home, and they'll sneak it in. Do you have issues like that, or is that?
Oh, it's happened. It doesn't happen that much anymore, but it's happened to us. I remember in particular, for her sake. I mean, she's still currently an employee with us, so I'm not going to mention any names. But this particular lady, and she does a good job. I mean, poor thing, it's not her fault, but she did run out of HDOX, which is, as you know, it's one of the greatest products out there, which is what we use, a hydrogen peroxide solution. It's an excellent product, and she ran out. And instead of calling us or calling my wife, now granted we were busy and we had a lot going on, but we always try to be 24 hours a day with especially with our people that need us, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, well, she goes home and she has to come clean the building again the next day. And instead of giving me a phone call or giving my wife a text or a phone call and say, hey, listen, we're out of product, can you deliver some in the morning? She goes home and she gets a bottle of Fabuloso from
Oh gosh.
the bottom of her kitchen sink, which she uses at home. Then, of course, she uses it the next day. And then surely enough, I get a phone call from my client and says, hey, listen, are you guys using that purple stuff in the bottle? Because it stinks in here. And I don't like that smell and I've got allergies. I
Uh
said,
huh.
wait a minute. Oh, that can't be. We don't. Oh, I know what I'm smelling. I know that you can't argue that with me. And then, granted, surely enough, I went by the facility and I went inside and I smelled it. Surely enough, she even left the bottle there.
Oh my, left the evidence, as you would
Yeah.
say.
And, I called her back and then I told her, I'm like, listen, dear, the client's not happy with this because he doesn't like that stuff. And you know very well, we don't use that stuff. Uh, I appreciate you trying to get it cleaned and not leaving him hanging. But, it's something that you have to always remember that you can't bring products from home. You shouldn't bring products from home, and especially those types of products.
Well, and what you're saying here is, folks, this is an educational time. This, to educate people on why we do the things we do, and this is a product. But the practice of using the right product, there's the expectations that the client has, and so as an organization, you're trying to meet the expectations of the client, and your process and the product are just parts of that whole scenario. That's why you're a $1.1 million company.
Yeah. Yeah, we try. We definitely try our best. There's no doubt about it, and we're very, very adamant about it. I think that the problem is when you start getting, I don't want to say lax, but in a way it is being lax, and you really lose your foundation when it comes to your principles about what you're using, what products you're using, and what you're doing. That's what creates problems. And again, like I said, I think I said earlier, that's what does not create the distinction between your company and somebody else's.
Folks, I want to take a moment here to let you know that we are sponsored by Gym Supply that Javier mentioned. They have been providing supplies that improve lives since 1930 here in Central Florida. There are 4 locations: Orlando, Kissimmee, Lakeland, and Tampa, where Javier does most of his business. Have you found it to be hard to stay away from and not accept the other jobs that don't want you to do green cleaning? Is it hard to stay true to your practice?
It is. It is. It's absolutely. It is difficult, and it takes a lot of work trying to open the client's eyes to see what they're doing. But it gets to a certain point to where, and luckily, as you said, Dave, we're doing well, and we're blessed enough to be at this particular point to where I'm at the point, and my wife, we're at the point to where we can turn away business if we have to, if it doesn't meet our principles. And I've done it before. We've both done it before.
Right.
It's just if you can't get somebody to understand and they want us to go against our principles, the guy says, okay, I'm going to give you a building that's 4 stories and I want you to clean it 7 days a week. And I want this and that. Sure, your eyeballs are opening up because, hey, man, that's a great contract. You're going to be making good money. But the guy tells you, well, wait a minute. Before you come in, you got to use Mr. Clean. You got to use Fabuloso. You got to use Lysol. I want you to use a cotton mop in a old-fashioned bucket with a wringer. I don't want you to use bucketless mop technology. I don't want you to use any of this kind of stuff. I just want you to use the conventional stuff. Personally, I'm going to tell them, and even my wife will tell them too. We'll say, hey, listen, we appreciate the business and you guys giving us the opportunity to cater your needs, but we don't function that way. And we're not going to put ourselves in a position to do it to your standard instead of the correct way because our reputation's on the line. And it's not so much our reputation. We don't care so much about that. It's more that it's just not the right thing to do.
Well, now I'm going to disagree with you there just a little bit, Javier, if you don't mind, because I'm looking right here on your about page, and it says we're 5-star rated on Google and Home Advisor,
Mhm.
and we're bonded, we're insured, um, and you even talk about your certificate and everything. Reputation does matter, because what else do you have at Modern Cleaning Solutions?
Right, right. No, you're right, Dave. Absolutely. There's no question. I mean, I think what I meant was you're trying to express myself in that particular segment in this thing here is that yes, of course, reputation is primary, but it's also I think it's part of it. It's a great majority of it, but it's also too it's getting somebody to understand that you're not going to compromise on your principles over money because that's what ends up
There you go.
happening in most cases. People say, "Oh, I'm getting a nice juicy paycheck. I'll clean with a road tar if I have to."
And I think this is what you're saying here at this, folks, is what Javier's trying to also say, if I can paraphrase a moment, is not for the sake of money do we lower our principles and our standards just because most of the cleaning operations do that. You have a standard, you have a set. The other thing is I think all of your equipment, your education for your employees what do you do with all that if you change your principles?
Absolutely, that's a great point. It's a major investment. I know that from day one, we have invested in all kinds of machinery that we currently have, and we use and we implement it and we use it every day. We try to as much as possible, but exactly, and that machinery, like you mentioned, Dave, is designed for these types of purposes. And yeah, you're going to spend all your money on this stuff, and then you're not going to use it. That makes no sense.
So I want to take a moment here because we've had a few people. I noticed that we've got a couple of people live on the air with us. If you have a question or a thought you'd like to ask Javier, go ahead and type it in the chat. We'd be glad to throw it at Javier and see what he has to say. I want to ask you: has it been hard to find? How do I want to say this? Product and services that you're looking for that aren't full of what you would call the marketing hype.
Yes, it is difficult because that's definitely out there. There's no doubt. The marketing hype is very, it's very widespread. uh, but yes, it is. It does become challenging in certain points. But the thing is that, like I always try to say, is that, or what I'm trying to say, I should say, is that I like to get one on one, and I think a lot of that marketing hype and those problems and these preconceived notions that people have is just having a one on one with your particular customer and with your client way before that you're going to even try to do any services on his building or her building or anything else. It's education, like you said, Dave. That's the most important thing, is education, because if they, from the beginning, before you step foot, before you give them any kind of estimate and say, well, wait a minute, I found you online, I've never heard of this green thing, so tell me, why is that? What is it about? Before we even go, go anywhere else. Well, sure, give me 10 minutes of your time. I'll tell you what I do. I mean, it's either going to work for you or it's not going to work for you. You know,
So I'm going to ask a question here, and I'm just thinking of all these questions in my head. So pardon me if I interrupt on those things. Um, do you ever do a demonstration of what green cleaning is, or is it or do people get it just by explanation, or do they have to experience it before it becomes understandable for them?
I've done several presentations since we started our business. I haven't done one in a while, in all honesty, because of course we've been busy in other aspects. But I've done it before, and especially implementing the type of equipment we use. For example, just off the top of my head, HEPA filtration vacuum systems, right? Why HEPA, and why are you using this particular vacuum? I mean, it's just the simplicity to even bringing the vacuum cleaner, your vacuum, taking it off my truck, or showing the client the vacuum cleaner that we use and why we use this vacuum cleaner, for example, versus their old-fashioned Hoover that's shooting dust out that they got in there in their closet.
So folks, if you're new to the show, or you don't know exactly what Javier's talking about, HEPA filter stands for high efficiency particulate air filter. You know, normal, and I won't say any particular names here, but your very conventional vacuums may just use a cloth bag, which is one of the big commercial vacuums that's out there, and that bag just collects, and it is somewhat of a filter, but not down to this high efficiency point. And you're talking about health, and we always say in class, the healthy the operator first. And I would assume from what you've said this morning that you and Jane are still running vacuum cleaners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We still do. I'm still vacuuming. That never goes away. That's one thing that we always get our hands dirty. And I think we probably always will get our hands dirty, because that's another thing, too, is the implementation of our practices that we try to do to show other people, our clients and our employees, that we're not too good for anybody else. It's not that your business starts to, because that's what happens. Business starts to do well, or at least on a path of doing well, and then, mentally, you just want to become this big executive, sit in this big leather cushy chair and eat lunch and have people bring you things and have a red phone on your desk. Well,
I was just getting a picture of Jana with all of that, like, I don't know that fits her personality too well.
no. My wife is a very, very hands-on person. She has been ever since her whole life, since she was a little girl, and that's the way she was raised as well. And that's the way I was raised. I grew up. My parents always told me, "You got to work hard for what you got." There's no gifts, and you don't stop working hard. Sure, I mean, it helps when you have more employees or whatever. You have more people to help you, to aid you, and to be there for you. But still, there's no shame in ever pulling out the vacuum cleaner, like you said, Dave, and using it myself or getting dirty, getting into it. It is what it is. I mean,
Now that being said, you guys are entrepreneurs, and I'm sure that there's probably plenty of people going to listen to the recording of this over the next year or two. Um, if you're new as being an entrepreneur, as you are in the last 5 years, are you married to this business 24/7, 365? Have you gotten away and taken a vacation, the two of you? Do you have to have date night in order to have time with your wife? Kind of give the new people, because like you said, there's new businesses all the time. What are they in for?
well, in the beginning, I want to say in the early stages of when you're starting, it takes a lot of commitment and dedication. There's no doubt. You have to really be serious about it in the early stages. But as time goes on, what I've learned and what's worked out for me, and luckily, I'm one of those fortunate people that I'm with my wife all day, every day. But sometimes I actually welcome getting away from her sometimes.
I didn't know you. I didn't know you were going to go there, but that's okay.
But I'm one of those people that, yes, we work together, we live together, and of course, obviously we're married. But so that's all joking aside. But the reality is that there comes a time when, like I said, when you have that sacrifice. I'd say the first year, 2 years of your business, you really, really got to work hard. 2 to 3 years, but there comes a time to where you have to create some yourself time, no matter what the consequences are, no matter what. I've talked to a lot of people. I mean, that go and they say, like you said, Dave, oh, I'm married to my business. I can't leave. I can't go anywhere. I can't do nothing. I can't travel. I can't. No, because I'm afraid that there's a problem and I'm the only one that can solve that problem. Well, it's all training. One thing is that if you've got a good product in place, you've got a good training program in place, which is really important for your employees, your clients will be understanding and they'll know that, hey, I am a human being. I have a life too. I have to have some R&R. If they know that, and they know that you're already doing a good job and you're true to your word, you say, okay, I'm going to be on vacation for 4 days, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. If there's any problem, you can call me, but I'll make sure that I can, if not myself, I can get somebody there to resolve your problem. So that's all in that implementation. So I think it's really important for people, the would-be now entrepreneurs, like you said, to not get scared about that situation, because it's not that way. I mean, ourselves, we're getting ready to go to New Orleans here for about a week uh, in April. Never been, looking forward to it, and we're going. I mean, we're not holding ourselves back to the where, oh my goodness, I'm scared to death, I can't go. No, I mean, there comes a time to where you enjoy yourself. You have to, or else you'll burn out too. That's the other thing, and that's even worse.
Well, I think that's what's interesting, folks. If you're a new entrepreneur or you're thinking about it, you're in the first 5 years. Javier's got some very good advice. He's one that's living it in this current day and age, and doing it with a green cleaning business that he and Jana are committed to wholeheartedly. I think it's great, as we've talked with you this morning, to hear how you've moved through. I remember those first few months of you coming to class and those questions and the answers and all of the things during that first year. It's very great to hear how successful the two of you have been, and that you're taking time for yourselves. I think that's also important. That's why I wanted people to hear that, Javier.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dave. Yeah, it is no doubt about it. It really is a very important. Uh, as I said, that you got to take time for yourself, no matter what happens, no matter what you do. It's just very, very crucial for even for your own health.
Well, it's great to hear that. I'm glad that you came on the show. I do have a couple other questions though.
Please shoot.
Are you going to come back on the show on a regular basis, or is this a one-time deal?
Now you know me. I do what I say 99% of the time.
Okay.
I'll be happy to join you as much as possible, as much as you want. I can try to come on if you really want me to. I can make it put a hole in my schedule that I'll come on every Monday for you. Or this same time, this same broadcast. I'd love to. Absolutely. Unless, of course, I will let you know in advance if something comes up like last week, unfortunately, or an issue with the business or where somebody I've got to be somewhere, meet a customer, client, or a family issue, or whatever. But as you know, Dave, I'll always let you know with a lot of advance notice.
Well, that's great. I think we've got one other person that he's in his third year. He comes on once a month with me. So let's start by telling the folks that you can listen to Javier, and maybe we'll get Jana on a few of these about once a month to get started. And hey, you know what? If people have questions and want to, maybe we'll get a few more times on the air with you.
That sounds fantastic to me, and I'll make sure I'll get her on the next one.
I don't know. Do we want her on here by herself or with you to
Oh,
moderate?
that's questionable.
Well, folks, it's not that bad. We're just having a little fun with it this morning. Um, the other thing I'd like to know now, I mean, you just gave us, where you guys are going here in a couple months. Um, what's on your personal bucket list for this year, Javier?
Well, for my personal bucket list, again, like I said, traveling. Since of course, it's just my wife and I, and we don't have any children. So we don't, for our reasons or whatnot. We do a lot of traveling and stuff like that when we can. So I think traveling is a big issue, and she really loves it. She's been doing that most of her life, a lot more than me. So that's on my bucket list to go to some certain spots and places that I haven't been to, and then of course, she wants to go back home to Europe. To her country hasn't been there in a long time, and of course, I would like to join her. So that's on the bucket list. But other than traveling, Dave, I would say I don't know. Just try to have a good year now in 2022. I think things are looking up, and I'm glad to see that this pandemic situation as well is kind of subsiding. So I think I think it's just to be happy and just try to enjoy yourself as much as possible, especially this coming year.
Well, I'd like to say, folks, as you mentioned, 22 and the pandemic. Next, here in 7 weeks, we will be hosting our first live streaming conference. It's going to be on April the 12th, and streaming means that's going to be to you where you're at right now, wherever you are listening to this. April the 12th, you can register right now at www.peptalk2022.com. It's going to be a day where over a dozen speakers will be coming on. They're giving a 15-minute talk. There's booths, everything to. It's just like a live conference in person, but it's on the web. We'll also be introducing our conference for 2023. And so you don't want to miss that. There's two ways to register when you go there. There's the open registration if you just want to come on, listen, or watch the talks. But if you want a recording and you want access to the speakers and some other a swag bag of items the speakers have set up, then you want the all access Rockstar Pass. When you go to register, choose one of those. Do it today. People have already registered. We've got a good group of people coming from all over the world, actually. I notice Javier, we even had some people from India and from Argentina and South America have already registered for the event. So, as you say, 2022 is not all bad. It's good. We've learned how to adjust and do some things differently.
That's absolutely right, Dave. Couldn't agree more with that.
So, Javier, how would they get hold of you if they want to learn more directly from you instead of wait for your next podcast?
Well, you can always contact us directly at our office. Where, of course, we're based in Tampa Bay. You can look up moderncleaningsolutions.com, which Dave has mentioned he was looking at our website. We have our telephone number, our office numbers there, and it's call forwarded directly to my phone and to my wife's phone. So we are always on call, no matter what. There's not. I mean, my preference is that unless it's an emergency, not at 3:00 in the morning, but with but in conventional times, we're always easy to be contacted. You can contact her or me. And as I said, we through the internet, and we have Facebook as well. You can look us up, moderncleaningsolutions.com, on our business Facebook page and our Instagram page. So we're there as well. Yeah, that's pretty much how do you get a hold of me. And I, as you said, Dave, I welcome any questions. I love discussing things with people as well. And just put my input and see if you can shoot it around, see how it goes.
Well, hey, you know what? I thank you for getting the courage up to be on the podcast for the first time, Javier. And we'll look forward to next month and getting you back on the air with us. Folks, as Javier said, he's all over the internet. So are we. www.academyofcleaning.com is our main website. Classes go on all the time. Yes, we have the live conference coming up, but come to a class, get certified, use that certification, make sure you're moving forward with whatever you're doing. Yes, we're just like Javier. We're out there on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all over YouTube. We've got hundreds of videos on YouTube. Folks, what I'd like to tell you is there's 3 words that we go by here. And, Javier mentioned where he's from and his wife, Jana, and we all start somewhere. And the journey is between there and our end. We don't know where that end's going to be, but whatever you're doing in between, make sure that it is healthy, positive, and proactive. Until we talk again next time, thanks, Javier, for being on the show, and good luck with the next month.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me. Have a great one.